Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of thevikingage.com. I am Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age zone coverage and bring me the news. My co-host is Adam Patrick. He is the managing editor of the Viking Age. That's what happens when I don't read the script and try to make eye contact. We do this every Monday and Thursday night right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. But if you miss us, we're available in audio form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But however you watch or listen, like, comment, share, subscribe, so you never miss a new episode. Adam, I know you are a fan of trivia to start the show. I don't have anything like that. I have been snowed into my apartment. We have gotten about 17 inches of snow in Brookings in the past 48 hours. People in Minnesota are actually pissed off because they expected 2 feet of snow, and now everybody's going. Paul Charchian actually this morning said something about being lied to and duped, which is hilarious because he's a fantasy football analyst, and I lost a lot of money on Dalvin Cook this year, who we'll talk about in a little bit. So before we get started, I guess I just wanted to ask, how's the weather in San Diego?
It's raining today, so it's depressing, but we'll power through. No snow. If there was snow here, I'd pick up and move to Hawaii because I'm sick of that shit. But no, we're not going to start the show off with weather. We got to start it off with this. Did WWE make a mistake by not having Sami Zayn win the title over Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. You know what? I think it would have been a lot of fun if Sami won. I have more. Yeah, it would have been a blast to see that pop and whatever. I just think they've booked themselves into a corner so much with Sami that they can't really, you can't really do the Roman loses in Montreal, but he wins it back the next night in, Ottawa or something like that. They can't do that because Roman's been champion for over 900 days. So you can't really do that. I also think that this Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes storyline is going to heat up. I'm a Cody mark. So, I mean, I will lay that out right now, but I have faith that Triple H is going to cook, so to speak. And eventually, by the time we get to WrestleMania, people will be interested. Maybe not as much as they were with the Sami Roman storyline, but I think Cody and Roman's going to be a good main event. So I'm sticking with it. I trust the process. If it were Vince McMahon running creative, as some has suggested, because now Brock Lesnar is fighting Omos in a match that I don't want to see at all outside of one giant F5, which would be pretty awesome. But yeah, I'm not upset about it. I know there are a lot of people upset about it. I'm kind of like, oh, shucks, that stinks that he didn't let Sami win. But I mean, I'm not protesting Raw and SmackDown because Sami didn't win.
Yeah, I'm hoping for maybe another payoff later on in the year because they got something. But I would kind of compare it to a Viking situation back in 2017 when Case Keenum kind of got all this unexpected steam and led the Vikings to the NFC Championship, and a lot of people were like, they should re-sign Case Keenum. They should see what they can do, keep it going. And the Vikings were like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to try. We don't think he's going to be the one to lead us to the most success possible, and we're going to go with someone who we think can do that in Kirk Cousins, which hasn't really worked out that well, but I think it's gone better than if they would have probably stuck with Case Keenum, because people always forget too that Pat Shurmur left that year as well, and he was a big key in Case Keenum's success that year. So I would look at that and be like, that's probably similar to how the WWE is thinking right now with Sami Zayn. It's like, yes, it's great. He's getting all this, these pops and everything. The hometown was awesome, but like, we got to stick to our guns, stick to our long-term plan, and maybe we can figure something out down the road. But right now, he's not part of that mix. At least
I think I think he could be a WWE champion someday. I don't think he'd be like a long-term guy. He'd probably be a guy who holds it like a Mick Foley. You know what I mean? Like Mick Foley held it for. Yeah, like his title reigns were not long, but they were very impactful. when he did have the titles. So I mean,
and they've had
that's
guys
kind of
recently.
somebody.
They've had guys like recently like Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan stuff like that. So I think he could do something like that. But yeah, I felt like it was right there, just like for the taking, and I feel like it could have been so much better than it was. But maybe it will be. Maybe they're just keeping it going.
I will also point out that all of Cody's merchandise sold out at Royal Rumble and the last pay-per-view.
Okay.
So they are, I mean, people, my
Oh,
friend
yeah,
put it this way. He's like, Cody's cold as F right now. And I'm like, well, no, not really. Like people, I think Cody's momentum was kind of slowed by the pec injury he had last summer. He didn't wrestle. And now all of a sudden he's just being dropped in. And I think a lot of people are just kind of like, wait, what? But
yeah,
that's me.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about another controversial. You mentioned it a little bit because, you know, if Case Keenum is Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes is Kirk Cousins, maybe a blonde, more corporate type of champion that you may look at. And the Athletics' Alec Lewis created a stir online because he dropped a 10-part plan for setting up the Vikings' future. Present and Future was the name of the article. And we won't go through all the steps. You'll have to check it out over at The Athletic because there are some interesting ideas like trading Zadarius Smith. You know, it was basically with the goal of competing next year, but also competing in the future. And one of the first steps that he took was extending Kirk Cousins. In fact, he called it a must this offseason for the Vikings. His quote, Cousins is under contract through 2023. Minnesota could restructure his deal to save money on the cap this year, but that would increase the amount of dead money they would owe in the future. So similar to last season, an extension feels like the best approach, especially considering the Vikings do not have another quarterback waiting in the wings. Let's start here. Should the Vikings extend Kirk Cousins this offseason?
I think it depends what kind of extension you're talking about. Because if you're talking about a year, that's fine. Whatever. Just extend that, and then if he wants an extension, you got to figure out a way to get that no trade clause out of there because that's gonna hold you back for a while. But if it's like another year, since they're gonna be already dealing with dead cap next year anyways from his contract, they're kind of doing something similar with Dalvin Tomlinson right now and Patrick Peterson. If you're gonna have him on the books already, you might as well figure out a way to like get some use out of that. So I think if they give him another year, that's not a big deal. Now, if they start going 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, then I think you run into problems. That's not. He's going to be what 35. He's been in the league for 11 years. He's some people think he's in the prime of his career. He's not. That was probably 2019, 2018. 2017 around that time. But I think it just depends on what the degree, the type of extension. I don't even care about the money really because they'll figure that out. But like a year is fine, and anything past that, I think is going to start to become problematic for sure.
You know, I'm probably going to date myself with this reference, but you remember when Facebook first came out, like in 2005.
Yep.
And the relationship status, they had single, like in a relationship, married, and one of them was it's complicated. And you would go online and these people would be in a happy relationship, right? They'd be posting all this photos. This is the Vikings and Kurt. They'd be posting the Kirk Chains thing with him on the plane and him singing with Kelly Clarkson and whatever. And they like him. They just don't want to do a long-term commitment. Right. That's exactly what this is. Like, if they go, like, look at what the Packers did last year. And I know Aaron Rodgers is, I think, 4 years older than Kirk Cousins. He'll be 35 this season. This will be the age 35 year for Kirk. So the Packers last year, they knew Aaron Rodgers was probably their best chance to succeed, especially coming off of back-to-back NFC championship game appearances. They gave him a 5-year, what was it, 150, like something astronomical. I don't have the exact money off the top of my head, but now they're sitting there and they're being like, oh shoot, like Rodgers might be cooked. He might be done.
Broncos too,
Blah,
with
blah,
Russell
blah.
Wilson.
Yeah, Russell Wilson deal. I mean, the Browns might regret the Deshaun Watson trade. They probably already do, but they're probably going to regret it for more reasons if he can't figure it out and if Cleveland can't figure out a competent passing game. You can't sit there and you can't sign Kirk into his age 40 season and just expect nothing to happen. This dude took more hits than any other quarterback, I think, in the last 2 decades. And like people just act like he's the T1000 or something. He's just going to keep getting up with like half his face blown off and keep giving fourth quarter comebacks. Like there were warning signs in Cousins' performance last year. And that doesn't mean that he can't show up next year and just ball out and the Vikings will be like, wow, we should sign him to another deal. But you look at this from Kirk Cousins' standpoint too. Like the Vikings are right to say, hey, we don't want to do a long-term commitment. If I'm Kirk Cousins and I'm his agent, who is probably one of the best agents in football, you're looking at a quarterback that just had 8 fourth quarter comebacks, who has increased his presence in the locker room, whether it was strong or not coming into the season, and is basically very likable. Like there is little risk with Kirk Cousins. You know what you're getting every year. It's going to be 4,000 yards. It's going to be around 30 touchdowns. He's not going to get arrested. He's not going to, throw an alligator through a Wendy's drive-through window.
I would love that.
Oh, that would be like if he ever got arrested. If Kirk Cousins ever got arrested, it would be like very Curb Your Enthusiasm, where he's like he's just wrong place, wrong time. And he's like, no, that's not what I meant. Like seriously, like I just ordered a cheeseburger and now there's this alligator here. I don't know how this happened. Yeah. So I mean, if I'm Kirk Cousins and his agent, I'm going, dude, I want to retire Viking. That's what I said last year. Yeah. I want to get compensated for my performance because I had 8 fourth quarter comebacks. And if you're just going to draft a quarterback or look for my successor over the next 2 years, I remember what you said last July, Kwesi, where you said, I'm not Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, but I beg to differ on that one. So they're going to want a long-term deal. It's going to be really interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah. And I think some people think that just because it's Kirk Cousins, that's the reason why the Vikings should start looking for a new quarterback. No, he's 35 and he's coming to the end of his career, and he's not at that high tier level where a Tom Brady or a Rodgers can just play at that age at a high level. So any team in a similar position would be doing probably the same thing right now, where they're, at least taking the steps to get a new quarterback in the mix, because that's just what you have to do. It's the cycle of the NFL. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's Kirk Cousins. You just want him out of there. It's like, no, I would think this if it was like any other, quarterback that plays at his level. So like, look at the Titans last year. They drafted Malik Willis. I feel like a team like the Seahawks might draft a quarterback this year because, Geno Smith, he had a good year, but he's not getting any younger either. You look at the Niners, they're going to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. They're going to roll with probably Trey Lance or somebody. The Raiders are moving on from Derek Carr. Like all these teams in a similar situation with quarterbacks similar age, they realize they need to kind of start over at quarterback, and that's what the Vikings are doing. But you mentioned some of the pros of keeping Cousins around is that where you're going to get pretty much out of him. He's not going to be a problem off the field. He's going to be fine in the locker room. He's going to be, he's going to be consistent on the field. I wouldn't expect him to have 8 fourth quarter comebacks every year. But he's capable of that, at least under Kevin O'Connell. But then, you get into those situations again, like in the playoffs, where it's a tough team, a tough situation, and he doesn't come through. And that's also something you have to expect as well from Kirk Cousins, because he hasn't proven otherwise. I don't care if he came back during the regular season or whatever. That doesn't matter. You got to do it in the playoffs. And he hasn't done that so far. Yeah, and he hasn't done that so far. And people keep talking to like, oh, he can lead the Vikings to Super Bowl. And I'm like, can we focus on getting to an NFC Championship first? Can we just focus on that first? Like, don't even talk about Super Bowl with him. Because there's no reason for anyone to believe that's, fine, you can believe it's possible, but like there's no evidence or whatever that it can actually happen. But yeah, it's time for the Vikings to just at least take those steps to move forward. And I think I responded to Alex's article or whatever. I kind of said like, this is the opinion of the minority, and he was like, that's fair or whatever, on Twitter, and I was just like, I think it's fine. You can think this way or whatever. I understand your train of thought, but like I just think that a lot of people want the Vikings to at least take the steps, not even like sign anyone or draft anyone, just at least get the ball rolling in the direction to look for a new quarterback, whether it's setting up things for next year or whatever. They need to begin that process. So yeah.
It's the elephant graveyard of Vikings Twitter who just subtweets everybody and plays on StatHead all day and that sort of stuff that really wants this 5-year super. I mean, you can't do it. Like and here's the other thing. So, I mean, we mentioned the Packers, right? You looked at the Packers coming into last year and you said they have a lot of pieces that can lead them to the NFC Championship game. So this might be, or lead them to the Super Bowl rather, because their bar was a little higher. So you looked at that, you said, okay, let's keep our quarterback here, our Hall of Fame quarterback, and hope he, maybe he retires in 2 years, but that's fine. We'll just have his rights for the next 5 and we'll be okay. The Vikings aren't in a position to do that. There are too many holes on the roster. Rick Spielman whiffed in too many areas where he tried to build depth. And at this point, you need young talent that can make an impact. So that's going to be huge for guys like Lewis Seen, Andrew Booth, and Brian Asamoah. And you need free agent money so you can go out and you can fill some of those holes, like, I don't know, a grown-ass man at right guard, or maybe even like a decent cut. Like I'm doing 7 free agent corners the Vikings could sign in free agency. And I'm looking at half of them going like, put that back. It's too expensive. Like if you give Kirk Cousins, and here's the other thing too, look at how much other quarterbacks are going to make in this free agent period. Geno Smith is probably going to get a $35 million contract according to Pro Football Focus. They have Derek Carr estimated at $30 million. I think it's going to be much higher than that. I think so. Daniel Jones is asking for $45 million.
Yeah.
And if you're Kirk Cousins and like they come up to you like, hey, let's take a pay cut. And he's going to be like, nah, did you see what I did last year? Yeah. He's going to ask for a lot of money. And you can't sit there and go, we'll give you $45 million, but hey, we have no money to fix our right guard problem. Ed Ingram's a mess. Ezra Cleveland's a mess. Our secondary is bad. We have no talent on defense, but we'll just keep trading down in the draft for draft pick. That's not a good strategy. So, I mean, a 1-year extension, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But if you go 3 or 4, you don't have the infrastructure to make Kirk Cousins successful over that long haul, especially at a time where his physical skills are eventually going to drop off.
And I'm interested to see too, because I think Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, they only got like 4-year contracts, so they probably want to make sure that like their team isn't terrible, so they can get another contract. So I wonder if they're waiting to get an extension before they start, really getting serious about getting a new quarterback, so they can get that security of, being like, okay, if things don't go well for a year or 2, we know that we're going to still be here. But right now they only have like 3 years left on their contract, so they don't want to. Maybe they don't want to take that risk right now, where things go wrong, then it's like we could be, we could be doomed because we don't have a lot of time to really do this. But honestly, I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if Kevin O'Connell didn't get an extension this summer, like after 13 wins. Like the Wilfs I feel like the Wilfs and everybody likes to reward their coaches for success. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. What March 15th is the first day you can officially sign people. The 13th, I think, is when you can do the legal tampering.
So free agency basically starts the 13th.
Well, and then the combine too is coming up. Yeah. So, and there's going to be, and Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell is going to be speaking at that. I don't expect them to say a whole lot. Usually they say, we find out more when they talk to the beat reporters kind of to the side, and there's chatter and loose lips, like the alcohol loosens some people's lips in the combine. We find some more things out, so maybe some things will slip out because I'm sure Cousins' agent will be there. They might meet with him, so it'll be. We should find out some more stuff probably within the next 2 weeks. I would say.
Good old St. Elmo's. Also, don't forget, the Vikings have to sign Justin Jefferson too. And I know that his
Yeah,
extension would not kick in until after Kirk Cousins' extension. But if you
right.
sign him to this big deal, like a couple years down the road, okay, you're paying your quarterback a lot of money and you're paying a receiver a lot of money. How do you fill these holes?
Hawkinson too.
Yeah.
Darisaw too.
And you're probably an 8 or 9 win team. That's what Cousins has been throughout his career.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Elsewhere in Kirk Cousins news, he's getting his own reality show. Now he's going to be with Patrick Mahomes and Marcus Mariota, but it's going to be a Netflix documentary creatively called Quarterback. And we'll follow all three of these guys around as they were mic'd up for every game throughout the 2022 season. It is created through Patrick Mahomes' production company, 2PM. I don't know how he came up with that name, but whatever. And Peyton Manning's Omaha Productions, along with NFL Films. So, how excited are you to see a Kirk Cousins documentary?
I'm interested for sure because I know it's not on the NFL's platform, so maybe there's a small chance that we'll find out some interesting things behind the scenes. But I'm not expecting a lot. It's run by Peyton Manning's company, and they have a relationship with the NFL, so they don't want to mess that up. I actually think a lot of people are going to probably come away from the show liking Kirk Cousins more than they might have in the past. And I think people are going to probably dislike Patrick Mahomes more than they have in the past. Not even because of him, maybe because of some people in his family. But I think this is going to be a good way for Kirk Cousins to kind of let people in on what he does off the field or whatever, and or even when he does on the field, because I guess they were mic'd up for every game, so we get to find out some of the things he might have said on the sideline during the Bills game or the Colts comeback and stuff like that, and how he acted. So I'm curious for sure. I'll be watching. I'm happy it's in the summer, so that kind of gives us something to do during the downtime. But I'm curious. I'm curious for sure. And Mariota's just a random quarterback that they threw in there. I wonder how that happened. And Mahomes will be interesting too, because he's on the Chiefs and they're really good. How's he do with his first year without Tyreek Hill, and do we get to find out what he was thinking when he hurt his ankle in the playoff game and things like that? So it'll be, I think it'll be interesting for sure. I think it'll be well done too. It seems like everything that the Manning production company does, they do pretty well. So I think it'll be an interesting watch for sure.
I think you're right about the fact that people will probably like Kirk more after this documentary drops, because the one documentary we have was like his free agent thing, and he's like, well, the Jets, we got him, so we can get a couple extra $1 million out of the Vikings. And I think that might contribute to some people's perception that Kirk is more about the money than he is about winning titles and whatever. And honestly, every time you see, I hate putting it this way, but Kirk Cousins in the wild, away from the football field or whatever, he seems like a nice dude. He's on the highway waving to Viking bus after beating the Packers. He's out in front of a donut shop, just like donuts. I mean, he seems like a very nice, mild-mannered person, but it would be interesting to kind of lift the hood and see what he's like as a person. And maybe this was kind of like one of his plans, hey, let's let people in a little bit more. And it's probably one of those things too that probably would not have happened. I'm saying probably a lot, but it probably wouldn't have happened under Mike Zimmer.
Probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Is that a wire? That's a wire. They're recording our play calls.
If the Vikings didn't make the playoffs this year, I wouldn't have been surprised if they were on Hard Knocks next year. I think Kevin O'Connell's pretty in touch. I think he realizes that it can help you by letting the public know how what kind of person you actually are. aside from, throwing interceptions on the field or whatever. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin O'Connell was like, "You should do this, Kirk." Like, just because it feels like he kind of came out of his shell this year, whether that was the locker room or Kevin O'Connell or whatever. But it felt like he was able to do that more. Definitely had a lot to do with Zimmer not being there. And we'll get to see behind the scenes of Kirk O'Chain, see how that all came about, how it evolved. That'll be interesting to see. I'm interested because it feels like with all these reality shows, there's always like certain roles or perspectives that they use for each kind of character, like and like I don't know, like Teen Mom or whatever. They have like this is the crazy mom, this is the kind of she's the good mom, but she's got other stuff going on. Like who's going to be the crazy quarterback, or like who's going to be the quarterback that just is frustrated all the time. Like what are the roles that they're this because they got to make it entertaining. That's what they do. So I'm curious. I'm like I never thought I'd be excited to watch a Kirk Cousins reality show, but here we are.
If we book this like a Real Housewives show, like you were talking about, like, what's the one situation you would want to see Kirk Cousins in?
Probably like someone stealing his notebook. Who took my notebook? Because he's known for like taking extensive notes wherever he at the Pro Bowl, wherever he goes.
It would be funny to see him like debating his wife on like the outfit she picks. Like, you should wear this. It would make it no.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. I think a lot of people are going to become fans of his wife too, because I think she's going to get a chance to like show her stuff or whatever too, and she's never been one to kind of like. She's not a certain wide receiver's wife to like put herself out there in the spotlight and say things, and I think she likes it that way. But this will be a chance for people to get to know her too, and I think she'll come away probably pretty good from this too. So it's gonna be interesting for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Our last topic of the day today has to go back to the negotiating table. And as we get out of the Kirk Cousins department and we go right into the Dalvin Cook department, because the Vikings posted a highlight package of Dalvin Cook earlier in the week. They did the same thing with Adam Thielen this offseason, so could be preparing their fans for a good bye.
They did it with Justin Jefferson too.
Yeah. Okay. So they're doing it with everybody.
They did it with.
They might be getting ready for a Jefferson trade. Oh my God!
They did it with Duke Shelley too. So they did it for everybody.
It's like when the Wild get rid of a player, like they'll do, like when they come back, they'll have like this video package, like thank you, Victor Rask, and it just shows him like screwing up on the ice and everything. Like, thank you, Shannon. With what's his name, Alan Barr, or the PA announcer. Thank you, Shannon Sullivan, for your 145 passer rating.
Did I see Randall McDaniel's nephew or whatever playing for the Wild? Did I see that right?
I don't know anything like that.
Yeah, I think I
would have heard about it, but
yeah, apparently. All right, yeah.
Anyway, Dalvin Cook's agent Zach Hiller saw the video and he posted his Instagram story, and then he posted a caption with it, and it says, "Now just picture they knew how to call running plays too." The Vikings were 27th in running plays last season, 404 attempts. KSTP's Darren Wolfson hinted that during exit interviews, the Vikings had planned to run the ball more this past season. So let's start here. Did Zach Hiller have a point with his passive aggressive comment?
I mean, he's his agent. He's always going to defend his client and want him to do better. But I think the Viking strategy as far as running and passing goes was fine. Running the ball is not how you win in today's NFL anymore. You need to have, probably a solid rushing attack, which I think the Vikings did at times. But for the most part, these days you have to pass to open the run game. It's no longer really run to open the pass game. So I think, and going from, a scheme with Mike Zimmer where Dalvin Cook is the the focal point of the offense, and he's getting the majority of the touches to going to Kevin O'Connell's offense, where guys like TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson are probably getting more opportunities than Dalvin. That's going to be frustrating. And, whether this is Dalvin voicing things to his agent and his agent kind of letting that known in the public, I don't think it is. I think it's just his agent. Because remember when he was going to hold out in training camp if he didn't get an extension, even though Dalvin Cook would have been fined every day if he held out. That didn't go too well. But yeah, I mean, he's probably just frustrated that his numbers weren't as good, and he's hearing rumblings of being traded or deal being negotiated. Because I don't know how like agents are impacted by renegotiated contracts. I don't know if they get a certain stipend or whatever percentage at the beginning of the contract, or they get paid every year, like percentage wise per whatever their clients get paid. I don't know exactly how that works. But he's an agent. He's looking for the best for his client. And he wants him to get the ball more. I think that's probably pretty much all it is.
I think that if he's looking at the Vikings, and I think he's got a little bit of a point because the Vikings didn't run the ball, but I think this is more on Dalvin Cook than it is Kevin O'Connell, because the Vikings spent most of the season behind on the scoreboard. That's the drawback to having fourth quarter comebacks is that when it's winning time and you want to kill the clock, well, you can't kill the clock because you're down by a score or two, right? So you have to ask yourself, why were they behind? And you can blame the defense. The Vikings did. They fired Ed Donatel. They put in Brian Flores, whatever. The offense stalled out at times.
Yep.
And part of that was because Kirk Cousins wasn't really comfortable with the offense at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
But the other part was they'd never had a consistent running game. See, I disagree with you in a little bit because it's just the Vikings didn't have those consistent 4 or 5 yard runs from Dalvin Cook that we've seen in the past year. When you look at Football Outsiders, they had Cook with a 48% success rate on runs. I don't know the exact definition of that, but it's basically enough to like move the chains. So it's like, if it's 3rd and 3, you pick up 3 yards or whatever. So 48, he was 33rd out of 42 qualifiers, according to Football Outsiders. He was 36th in DVOA, which means he had a very easy schedule against the run last year. The best way to help your defense is by law of possession, right? Hold on to the ball, sustain drives. If Dalvin Cook's like 270, 1, -4, whatever, you're not holding on to the ball. You're going to be more susceptible to 3 and outs. And nobody mentions this. I mean, we bashed Cousins. We've bashed Thielen on this show. We bashed the offensive line. Kevin O'Connell wants to throw the ball at Kirk Cousins on 3rd and short sometimes. Cook wasn't good. And then you also have like the outside factors with Dalvin Cook right now, because they have been growing over the past couple of years. He breaks his shoulder in 2019. He's playing without a shoulder harness, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, like he forgot to defrost the chicken or something. Like and then he talks about, I'll do anything to win. Doesn't get vaccinated. And I know I'm not going to turn this into a debate, but that season where you were going to miss time, like, hello. And then, there's that off the field thing that happened last year with the ex-girlfriend or whatever. He says the girlfriend beat him up. Girlfriend says Cook beat him up. We don't know what's going on there. Like, he has a point in asking for his $10.5 million base salary, because the free agents in this year's class, Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders, I think there's one, Josh Jacobs, are all going to get $10.5 million. So I get it. The problem is he's not on their level. He thinks he is, and his agent has to act like he is, because like you mentioned, if he's not doing that, it's a bad job. Cecil Lammey, the Audible, once said, teams will do anything they can not to pay you. Right. And I mean, Cook, he's probably going to the negotiating table being like, I have 4 straight 1,000-yard rushing seasons. The only running backs to do that in the Vikings history are Robert Smith and Adrian Peterson. So he's got
just Adrian
a valid
Peterson.
art. What's that?
Not Robert Smith, just Adrian Peterson.
Robert
4 in a row? 4 in a row? He did?
Yeah.
Well, 1,000. I was thinking of 1,100 because he had to
1,000
Peterson.
yards.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
So okay, 1,100. It's him and Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
That's an even better argument.
Yeah.
It's just running backs are replaceable. A lot of people act like they don't have a soul, and you should just use them up with 500 carries for 4 straight years, and then throw them in the recycling bin or something. I don't know, man. I mean, if they got rid of Dalvin Cook, I know he's a fan favorite at all. He's one of those players I wouldn't really shed a tear about getting rid of.
No, I think he's probably one of the ones they try and trade. I think he's someone you can get right now. You can still get a good return package for in terms of players you can trade on the Vikings roster this year. He's probably one of the ones that you can get the most for because he still has a good amount left in the tank. But yeah, and we forget too that he was used to having CJ Ham on the field like during the Zimmer era, and CJ Ham he got like half the snaps on offense that he did previously. So that we got to think about that too, because he probably created a lot of holes for Dalvin Cook, and that wasn't there. Dalvin had to kind of just make his own holes sometimes, and that didn't work out. And maybe that's something he has to get adjusted to. Maybe another year in the system will help him out. But I think it's a bunch of things that went wrong, like play calling. Sure, fine. It was Kevin O'Connell's first year play calling. He's not gonna get everything right. He definitely got plenty of things wrong, but he got stuff right too. And then Dalvin Cook, like he's not the guy he used to be. Like it's totally fair to say that. But then like in the Bills game or whatever, he busts off that 84-yard run or whatever to help them come back, and that's why you keep a guy around like that, because he can do that. But then there's games where he rushed for like 30 yards, and so it's kind of like late career, or what was it, 2015 Adrian Peterson, where like he had some monster games, and I think he led the league in rushing, but there were games where he had 40 yards rushing, and you're like, this is what we have to deal with if we want those other games, and that's what the Vikings have to think about. So he's someone else that he was a captain last year. I don't know how much that affects. Have you watched the Voyage or whatever, the episode that they put out, the little mini documentary it's 45 minutes long. So I watched it last night. It's a fluff piece.
From VEN?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very well put together. I will give them that. They do very good work in terms of like making how things look. But yeah, it's fluff.
No offense to anybody at VEN. Like if they stumbled on this, I mean, they do a great job over there with their pieces. I totally am. I'm just joking because it's like,
yeah, but we're never going to find out.
It's team media, so
we're not. Yeah, we're not going to hear about Adam Thielen complaining on the sideline. We're not going to hear about Dalvin Cook getting frustrated because he's not getting the ball. We're never going to see those clips from a Vikings Entertainment Network video. Never.
Mic up Caitlin Thielen during Adam's contract negotiations.
Yeah, that would go well.
We should probably. You got anything else to add?
No. Yeah, we should probably get out of here before we get in trouble.
Well, that's all the time we have for today before we're forced off the air. This has been the Viking Age podcast. We do this every Monday and Thursday right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. If you miss us, you can catch us in audio form on Apple and Spotify. But no matter how you check us out, like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. I am Chris Schad. He is Adam Patrick, and we'll talk to you again on Monday.